Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Journey into Comics with your hosts, Nate Phillips and Brandon Stone.
I am a god, you dull creature.
Hey guys, and welcome to another BrandoCast. I am back, almost in a clean picture of health here. Not quite there. I'm getting there, but hopefully I'm well enough to be able to talk and be able to carry on a conversation without sniffling or coughing too much. I had about a couple weeks there. I was kind of really bad under the weather. I really couldn't talk too much, and I really want to thank Nate for stepping up. He did a couple of podcasts by himself. We were supposed to be doing our big Civil War debate, but I didn't want to do that if I wasn't going to be in top shape. And I also actually had to push back a BrandoCast that I was going to do with a couple of friends of mine, and that's still coming, guys. We're going to be recording that hopefully this week. So that way, I'm not sure when you guys will hear that. Hopefully we can make that sooner than later. But I wanted to go ahead and do a BrandoCast for this week because, you know, the holidays are now kind of over. We still got New Year's coming up, but you know, there's been a lot of stuff kind of happening over Christmas, and you know, I kind of wanted to reflect on my year because this year was I started collecting video games, and I started going into a hardcore. I started buying games in 2013, but it wasn't until 2014 that I really dived into it and went out on a regular basis, hunting for games, trying to add to the collection, get stuff I always wanted, get stuff I used to have, you know, get stuff I never played, you know, and so I really want to kind of reflect on my top retro gaming pickups. I plan on doing maybe a YouTube video for my favorite games of this year, like the more modern games. So I thought maybe doing a BrandoCast on my top retro pickups for the year, and you know, and I'll cover that kind of at the end of this podcast. But I want to first of all kind of plug a show that we put up for Christmas called Holiday Bullshit. And we actually recorded that back in October with Wes, Rob, Nate, and myself. So basically we sat around playing Cards Against Humanity. If you guys don't know what that is, it's kind of like what's that game, Apples to Apples, where you sit down and you basically play a card game where you someone puts up a topic or whatever, and then you have to play cards and make something make sense or funny or whatever. And so we played that, and it was absolutely hilarious. There was actually a lot of there's actually a lot of elf jokes in there, which is kind of funny because we didn't know actually when we were going to release the game, but we ended up doing it for Christmas. So guys, go check out Holiday Bullshit. It's really funny. It's off kilter. It's not scripted. We don't have a format. We're just sitting there playing the game, and it is kind of offensive. You know, the game is in itself offensive. So if you guys are easily offended, maybe you want to stay away from it. But I'd highly recommend it for a lot of good laughs. It was really fun to do, and it's actually been so long that I forgot a lot of what we did. We were all really tired when we recorded that, so it actually came off as almost fresh to me because I was so kind of slap happy with it that I forgot a lot of what the categories were. But so yeah, guys, go check that out. And as far as what I'm going to do next, I'm going to kind of cover some of the, a couple of gaming headlines from the last couple days. Of course, with the holidays, everybody got new games, new systems, and everything like that. And Lizard Squad attacked PlayStation Network and Xbox Live. So if you guys don't know who they are, they're like a hacker group. They're there's a couple of other groups out there that kind of do what they do. And this isn't the first time that they've attacked PlayStation or Xbox. Basically what they do, they're not stealing personal information. They're overloading the servers with bandwidth to where they're overloading them so much that nobody can get in to play online games. And I'm sure if you're listening to me talk, which I focus on gaming, you guys probably know that that's a lot of what goes into gaming nowadays is the online multiplayer of gaming. And with all those people and all those kids getting new systems, they couldn't even log in. They couldn't even set up their systems or do anything like that. and they couldn't play online. And that was very frustrating for me. I personally, I don't need to be online to play games. I'm not even a huge multiplayer guy, but I can just imagine all those kids getting excited for their new systems, and now they can't even do anything. And even now, today's Sunday night, and there are still some PlayStation outages in certain areas. They're getting it restored. Xbox Live went up, I think, a few days ago, and they got it back up and running. But I watched an interview with somebody who's claiming to be from Lizard Squad, that's got to be the stupidest thing. If you're supposed to be a hacker group, you don't want to show your face, right? Isn't that what you'd want? Because what you're doing is technically illegal to an extent. I mean, to be associated with the group and to be showing your face, that's got to be the dumbest thing that I could ever think of, is to be put yourself out there and then for possible persecution. But he was saying that they're trying to raise awareness about how the companies take all this money from the subscribers for the PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live respectively, and then they can't even have a sustainable system. They're trying to raise awareness to that on one of the biggest days of the year for getting gifts and everything for Christmas and for all that jazz. Dude, I don't buy it. I do not buy that. I'm calling bullshit on this, guys. These motherfuckers they robbed Christmas for so many kids. How many people do you think, didn't look online, didn't know about the hack, thought that their system just wouldn't work, and they tried to get, technical support? I mean, it's a really shitty thing to do. And the more that I think about it, the more I'm actually getting pissed off about it. I actually did have a kind of a long rant about this, and the way that I'm going about it now, because I'm getting flustered with it, is because I'm just getting so angry, guys. I don't buy the fact that they are trying to raise awareness. I think they did it just because they wanted to. It's that some men just want to watch the world burn, and these motherfuckers wanted to rob Christmas, wanted to rob all these people, and they said, oh well, if someone doesn't have anything better to do on Christmas than spend time with their family, then I don't feel sorry. Well, fuck you, because I like to spend time with my family, and I'm sure, so does a lot of other people. But there comes a time, I don't care who you are, that you just want to get some time alone. You want to get away from your family. Your family, leaves, or you end up just kind of by yourself, and then you want to play with what you got. Your toys, as far as the kid goes, your little, you want to be able to enjoy what you've got as a gift, and now you can't. Fuck you, Lizard Squad. Fuck you. I don't buy it. That shit pissed me off. Okay, the attack pissed me off, yes, but then the audacity of this son of a bitch going on Sky News or whatever it was, and I don't even know if that's even legitimate. But if it was, the audacity of that son of a bitch to go on TV, talk about how they did what they did to raise awareness, fuck you. All right, so now I've got that out of the way. That was a little bit of a rant on my end. Tone it back down a little bit. Tone it back down. There was another story that kind of came out a few days ago about a fella went to Walmart to buy a gift for his niece, buy a PS4. And they mentioned that the PS4 had been returned. Now, I was not aware that, okay, for systems or TVs or anything like that, I wasn't aware for this, for high-end stuff. I was aware that, if you buy something that was open, and then you took it back, for things like headphones or something like that, and if they were not defective, then yeah, they would sell them as returned. But for movies or for games, if you open that stuff, they won't take it back, right? So how does that work? I'm not really too sure about this story. I'm not going to call the guy a liar, but anyway, so he's going to go buy his PS4 from Walmart. The associate giving him assistance says the box feels a little heavier than usual, but doesn't investigate it. He gets it home. He's getting ready to wrap the thing. Opens it up and sees 2 large rocks in there instead of his system. So he goes to take it back, and I think he said that the store was closed, so he went to another one. He got turned away, and they told him that they weren't going to refund him his money because they had no proof that he actually bought the system that way. Because, of course, he could have been a scammer saying, hey, I bought the system. I got some rocks in there. Give me my money back. And then, he could just kind of make off with the system and get the system and his money. But to play devil's advocate here, that's very plausible, I don't want to call this guy a liar or anything like that. Eventually he did get his money back. He got refunded for the whole ordeal. But I want to know, why do people do that? I thought that there used to be something called integrity. I purchase something and I take it back and I give it back to them. I don't try to rip people off. And I know that there's a lot of people in this world who don't have integrity. Just imagine if he never opened that, and whoever he bought that system for, if they were going to open that up and see 2 big rocks in there. I mean, yeah, that's kind of sounds like a gag gift that some people would do for their families, yeah. But it wasn't a gag. It was legit. If it was legitimate that he actually got this system this way, or the box, I guess that's all he actually got. He had the box and some rocks. Just imagine the look on both of their faces. There's a lot of hypocrisy with holidays, especially with this time of year. You see all this stuff. You're supposed to be cheery. You're supposed to be happy, and yet there's so much misery going on, in the process. So those were a couple things I wanted to kind of talk about and shed my opinion on, or just, I guess, fill up some time here, because there is something else that I want to talk about, and that is my gaming journey. Now, I actually started doing this. Well, it was a couple episodes ago. I meant to do it on my last BrandoCast, but on the last BrandoCast that I had, there was a lot of news going on. It was right after Thanksgiving. A lot of stuff kind of broke. We had the Sting come back, the week before. The Stinger. We had CM Punk kind of come out and start talking. So I had a lot to talk about. But and I want to try and remember exactly where I was. I think I talked about the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo, which I never actually owned it. ColecoVision, all that stuff. But as I continue to ramble, I guess if I'm going to do my next part of my gaming journey, going on, the next system that I would actually get that would have any sort of landmark for my past would actually be the PS1, the old original PlayStation. Now, I remember when the system came out, it was like 95, and I still just had my trusty old Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. And the next year, they were really hyping, or they were actually currently at that time hyping, but it didn't come out till the next year, the N64. And that is the system that most of my friends got. They continued on with the Nintendo, going on to the N64. And I had a choice to make. I could, because I may have mentioned, again, this has been a while, so I may just be retreading this, but for the Super Nintendo days, we kind of had like this unofficial Super Nintendo trading ring for like video games. Like, we all ended up getting, like, of course we all got Mario and stuff like that, but we ended up getting some different games, and we could all swap games with each other, and that's how we got to play so many great games at for that time period. So I could actually keep this going, or I could go get a PS1. Now, I was going to get an N64, and then I went to a friend's house for a sleepover for his birthday, and he had a PS1, and we played that thing all night, and the PS1 just blew me away. So I ended up getting a PS1, and I want to say I got it in 1998, so it was a few years after it came out, and I just got a message from somebody, from my good buddy Nick. His PSN is still down. Any thoughts? Well, bud, right here live on the podcast that you're probably going to listen to, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, bud. I know it's working for some people, and for some people it's still not. But I'll tell you what, bud. Once I get done with this, I'll hit you up and we'll see if we can troubleshoot this thing. I saw a few things on the web about possibly getting it fixed or finding a way to be able to connect. So continuing on with my video game story here, the PS1 that I got in 1998, I still have it. And I ended up loaning it to a friend, and we actually swapped for the N64. And during that time period, I don't know what happened. I trusted him. I trust the fact that, it wasn't misused or abused, but the memory card slot stopped working. And it still is like that. The memory card slots do not work. And luckily for me, I had a Game Shark, and it had like 8 memory cards on the Game Shark, so I could still actually use it just fine. I just had to, boot it up through the Game Shark each time and use the memory cards through the Game Shark. But there were so many games on the PS1, and unlike for the Super Nintendo, I actually had a lot more games for the PS1. I remember a coworker of my dad's was unloading a lot of his PS1 games, so my dad would come home, every so often with 2 or 3 games for me, and it would be a lot of them were some sports games that, for the time. Triple Play 98 was one of them. I played the heck out of that one. NCAA football, Andretti racing. And then he came home with what I call the trifecta. It was, and still is, 3 of the biggest games for the system. And that is Tomb Raider, Twisted Metal 2, and Final Fantasy 7. And I had the guides for all 3 of them. He got the guides and everything. And one of those games is still considered, for me, one of my favorite games of all time. That's FF7. But I couldn't get into it at the time. Maybe it was because I didn't have a big influence of RPGs or a lot of experience with them. Because by that point in time, Pokemon had just come out in '98, and I want to say that I had played that by then, but I'm not 100% sure. So I had a little bit maybe, but as far as the big story-driven RPGs, I hadn't had a lot of experience with that. And so starting it off, it seemed really boring compared to the violence and destruction of Twisted Metal 2 and the violence and boobs, even though they were pointy boobs, they were still boobs, damn it, of Tomb Raider. So it was an easy choice to play those over FF7. Eventually, I would see the Final Fantasy light. I would start playing it. It would hook me, grip me, pull me in, and it would be the very first large story-driven game that I would actually play and get me into that type of gaming, other than the typical arcade-style games or the platformers, something like that. Something that was really story-driven, and the next game that would actually take that to the next level would be Metal Gear Solid, because it was so cinematic in the way that it presented its story. It was almost like watching a movie and then playing a game, half and half the time. It's like half the time you're playing the game, half the time you're watching it, and the voice acting was very good, because I remember hearing some horrible voice acting in some of those early PlayStation games. Resident Evil is definitely probably one of the highest ones among those, but Metal Gear Solid was just very well done from the gameplay. It hasn't aged too well, but the gameplay at the time was really good. The voice acting, it was so much deeper. It was so deep, and how it took you along a ride, and there's so many twists and turns along the way. And now, of course, the Metal Gear Solid series would go further with that as the time would go on. But yeah, the PS1, I had that from '98 until 2001. I mean, of course, I still have it, but it was my main gaming system. I didn't get an N64 until much, much later, until I bought that for myself. But do I regret not getting an N64? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I do like the N64. I think it has a great array of games, but I don't think that the system or its games are anywhere near as deep as anything that was available on the PS1. Now, the N64 was a very capable system, but I would have loved to have seen some large story-driven games, and I'm not saying that they're not out there for that system. It's just from my comparison, when I'm thinking of large story-driven games, like I mean, the era of the RPGs, they were getting so popular. There are so many on the PS1. There's not very many on the N64, and that's not to say that there are no story-driven games at all in that system. But when you compare the two side by side, to me, it's pretty obvious to see that the PS1 wins out on that. So I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that I can add to my PS1. It's kind of a gaming journey. I mean, of course, there's so many games. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which I don't own, but I've played it. There was a lot of games that got started. A lot of franchises like Twisted Metal that really aren't around or aren't as popular. Crash Bandicoot. I used to love the Crash Bandicoot commercials for the PS1. I really wish Sony would never have sold that property, because I still feel like he should be the mascot, even if they aren't making any a whole lot of games, because there was so much defiance with that character. He was standing outside of the Nintendo headquarters, yelling in there with a megaphone, and I used to. It kind of reminded me of the Sega and Nintendo gaming wars, the gaming console war from the Super Nintendo and Genesis. So I really wish Sony would acquire Crash and bring him back and release another really good Crash game. I think that'd be awesome. But moving forward, I guess the last thing that I'm going to talk about, and I do apologize if this isn't a very long BrandoCast here. As I said, I'm still kind of getting better. I'm kind of just rambling on. I did have, I obviously have stuff to talk about here, but I'm still kind of sick. I don't know what, what can I say? I have to take some pauses every once in a while and make sure that I just don't start coughing. All right, so what I'm going to close with today is the retrospect on, or my retrospective on my collecting this year. I have had a hell of a year for collecting. When I started last year, there was no way that I thought by the end of this year I'd have almost or over 500 games. And, when you think about that, that's not all brand new purchases. That's a lot of getting on the cheap. That's a lot of thrifting. That's a lot of bundles. And there's a lot of highlights. My first day that I consider my dive into getting my collection to where I wanted it, deciding I want to collect video games. I want to have a gaming room. I want to have a rig set up to where I can access any gaming system I want without having to do much prep or dig a system out. It's got to be ready to go within a matter of minutes. And that, when I got that set up in February, I went out with a buddy of mine, Mike, and we went pretty much all day and went game hunting across a lot of stores. I got a lot of games, and I got 7 systems that day, or it was like a 2-day period, because I spent quite a bit of money. I made a deal with my wife as far as our tax return goes that year, so I got to spend after we budgeted everything, I got to spend quite a pretty penny of it, and I decided to do my gaming collection and to boost it up and get ready to go. So, but after that, I never really stopped. I did take a couple of breaks as far as actively going out and trying to search and collect and everything like that. But I had a couple of really big finds and a lot of really cool things that I really wanted for my collection. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my top 10 retro pickups of the year. Now, I do plan on making a YouTube video for my, not necessarily top 10, but my favorite games of 2014. But this is going to be just retro pickups. This is nothing new. Nothing that came out this year is going to be on this list. This is all stuff that I've either, amassed throughout the year, or some individual titles that I tracked down, or I decided that was going to be my goal, and I ended up getting it. So number 10, and this is going to be very vague, but my PS1 collection. As I mentioned, and it actually kind of coincided, I really didn't think about it when I wrote out my little rundown sheet. The PS1 is one of my favorite systems of all time. and it actually just celebrated its 20th year anniversary. It came out with a special edition PS4, and since that system is like one of my favorites, and it's really kind of cheap to start collecting for, I decided I'm going to start getting a lot of the games that I either played or wanted to play for that system. And boy, I went hog wild because I was able to get a lot of games for really cheap. As I said, a lot of these titles are under $5. So I went in, and it was very easy to start amassing quite a few titles. And you can find these very easy at Goodwills. You just go into the a lot of times they're hidden in the like the audio CDs. You just go down and start looking, and you'll end up finding some. Now, most of the time you're going to find crap, sports games, whatever. But over the year, and I want to say I started with maybe 13 games. I had the Final Fantasies. I had Metal Gear. I had Resident Evil. But there were a few that I still had my eye out for. Okay, a lot. But so by the end of the year, I now have about 90. And that is just incredible. And I'm finally at a point where when I'm looking at the games that I really want to get, it's getting shorter and shorter. I mean, I can truly say that there's probably not more than 20 more that I really am going to go out of my way to own. And a lot of those are really cheap. I just haven't bought them yet, like the Cool Borders. I want to have Cool Borders. Come on, man. Those games are fun. Cool Borders 2, 3. I mean, and then of course there's some, as I mentioned, I don't own Symphony of the Night yet, Castlevania. I actually don't own Silent Hill yet. But I bet I can make that list under 20, narrow that down. But yeah, my PS1 collection is something that I'm very proud of for having picked up this year. Number 9 is going to be my PSP RPGs. Now, I loved the PSP when it came out, and I didn't get one until the second version, the Model 2000. And this year, I picked up a Model 3000. Now, my Model 2000 was on the fritz. It wasn't working. Turns out it was just the battery. So imagine my surprise getting my PSP 3000, taking the battery out, putting it in the 2000, it fires right up. So I decided that I'm definitely going to start collecting for this system. And much to my surprise, which, as I said, I really like the system, but I was not aware that there were that many RPGs out for the system, and there are just a ton. A lot of remakes, a lot of re-releases, and a lot of newer ones as well. And some of my favorite ones that I picked up this year are, it is a remake of Lunar Silver Star. It's called, Silver Star Harmony, and it is the remake of Lunar Silver Star, which was on the Sega CD and PS1. And they've added a lot of like stuff to it and made it a lot better of a presentation. Now, I've heard the game's a little easier than its original format, but that's okay with me. I don't need my RPGs to be ridiculously hard, but Phantasy Star Portable, that was another one I picked up this year. The remake of Final Fantasy Tactics, the remake of the first Star Ocean First Departure. Now that game actually never came to the States on the Super Nintendo, as far as I'm aware. I think it did get a reprint or a you know what I'm talking about, the little a reproduction cart. Boom, there it is. It only took me 30 seconds, but yeah. So I'm really looking forward to getting more. There's so many more that I need to get, and I love having my RPGs on the go, man. If I'm not driving, I can just sit there and dive into an RPG. I can grind, I can go through it. Then for the PSP, you can just stand by it when you need to take a break, or if you need to go do something, and then you can come back to it. It's a perfect thing for RPGs, because before on RPGs you had to have the time. You had to sit down either at your computer or at your gaming console and have the hours needed to dedicate to playing that game. And now you can just take your time, take breaks whenever you need to, and it's still there when you come back. Number 8, speaking of RPGs, is what I call my Sakaguchi collection. Now, Sakaguchi, I want to say his first name's Hironobu. He was the guy that created Final Fantasy. Now, I probably just totally botched his name. But after he left Square, he went on to form another company. And they made 3 RPGs, and they've actually made a few more games. And I want to say they're doing something for mobile, and maybe there's one for the DS. But I'm not sure if that's available here. But the main 3 that I wanted to pick up are the ones for the consoles. And he did 2 games exclusive for the Xbox 360 and 1 for the Wii. And those are Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey for the 360 and The Last Story for the Wii. And the main reason why I wanted to get these is because when you have the guy that created Final Fantasy, the guy that has done almost all the music for Final Fantasy, barring a few games, in Nobuo Uematsu, you're going to get... I mean, they've created so much magic in the past that I wanted to experience these games. It's almost like Final Fantasy went its way, and now here's the original guy that created Final Fantasy going his way. So it was a no-brainer. I had to get these games. Now, Blue Dragon, they actually had all the characters that were designed by Akira Toriyama. He's the guy that has, of course, created Dragon Ball Z, and as well as created the characters for pretty much every Dragon Warrior game as far as maybe like the Super Nintendo goes, and also Chrono Trigger, and just so many games that he's been involved with over the time. Lost Odyssey was an entirely new design. I mean, it was a more modern design. Blue Dragon was more of a, had that anime style to it, but Lost Odyssey had a more of a futuristic kind of design to it, and it had a more classic, it's almost like if you were playing a Final Fantasy and it had, your classic turn-based system, but it also tried to introduce something new. That's what Lost Odyssey really reminded me of. And then, of course, Last Story is it's more of an action-based RPG. But those 3 games, man, I really was really lucky to track those games down this year. And they were all... I searched out Lost Odyssey, found it at GameStop, and I think I found Last Story there too. But Blue Dragon, I just found that a few weeks ago, and I was just so elated, and it was really cheap. So I was really happy about that. Number 7, the NES Top Loader. Now, I actually picked this back up. I picked this up back in October, and I actually didn't want this one because I was very well aware that most of them are RF only for output to the TV, and I wanted AV because my entire setup in my game room is AV. Not that a RF is going to hurt it, but now that I have one, I absolutely love it. I know that I can get a better picture if I use an original toaster, but man, this top loader is just, it is so reliable. It works on the first time, every time. I can play my games. They don't look that bad. And maybe that's because maybe I'm just not that much of a graphics whore. Maybe I'm just not that picky. I don't know. But I will take that little bit of a degrade in the audio-visual department to sort of get a reliable system that every time I put the game in there, if there's something wrong with it, I know it's the game and not the system. This thing is just, it is top of the notch. So, moving on to number 6, and I got this just a few weeks ago as well. That is, for the N64, I got Legend of Zelda's Majora's Mask, the gold collector's cart with the little holographic label. Now, the reason why that I even put this on the list is I'm a huge Zelda fan, and I still don't own Ocarina of Time for the 64. I actually own the remake for the 3DS, and I own the little collector's disc for the GameCube. So I've got it on a couple of different formats. I just haven't found a cartridge in a good enough shape for the N64. But every time that I've seen the gold Majora's Mask cart, it's always been a little bit more expensive than I wanted to pay. And that's not to say that I didn't pay for it, because I didn't get it too cheap, but I did pay for it. And it just looks so pretty, man. It just looks awesome. And now that's actually kind of a double-edged sword, because I have it and it looks awesome, but now I really want to try and track down the gold cartridge for Ocarina of Time as well, which is going to run that price of that game up a little bit. But number 5, Soul Blazer for the Super Nintendo. Now, why is Soul Blazer on here as an individual title? Because I got a lot of RPGs this year, But Soul Blazer, I saw it on YouTube. I saw some people talking about it, and of course, it's in the same family as like the Illusion of Gaia, the kind of the action RPG style on the Super Nintendo. And I decided that I'm gonna try and track this thing down, and I'll be damned if I was not able to track this thing down locally. And it's a little expensive. I love to get things as cheap as possible, but for some games, it's kind of hard to describe. It's like something that you really desire, something that you really want for your collection, something that I never did play Soul Blazer. It was that excitement of a new game that is heralded by people and that you want to check out. And the fact that it's just for the Super Nintendo, that doesn't matter what system it's on. It's that exploring something new. It may be that it is for an older system, something that you didn't get to experience when you were a kid, when you were growing up with that. I don't know, that was just really exciting. And when I found it and I was able to get it and track it down, that was really exciting. So my buddy's got Illusion of Gaia, and I don't know if he wants to keep that. I hope if he does, that's cool. If he doesn't, hit me up, man. Definitely want to try and get that so I can have the other game for that. Number 4, the Final Fantasy Collection. Oh, look, more RPGs. Basically, I was able to get all the rest of the Final Fantasies for the PS1, not including FF Tactics. It's not hard to find. I just haven't bought it yet, but I got that for the PSP. But I tracked all those down, so I got the PS1 numbered games, the numbered FF series complete for that. But then my buddy Rob tracked down a very special gem at a yard sale, and that was Final Fantasy IV Advanced, sealed, complete in box. And you have no idea what it was like not being able to open that thing. That was really, like, I sat here with this thing trying to figure out how rare this thing was, and it's really not all that rare. But I don't know. I was able to fight the urge. I got past the first 3 days. It's almost like that problem with like quitting drinking or more appropriately smoking. If you're an addict, the first 3 days are the hardest. Well, my addiction was getting that new game and wanting to open it and test it out. I got past the first 3 days and now we're good. So yeah, I really was able to grow my FF collection, my Final Fantasy collection. I got FF3 for the Super Nintendo. I need to get 2 and Mystic Quest. There's so many more that I need to get, but I love the Final Fantasy series so much, and to know that it has grown exponentially through this year, it makes me very happy. Number 3, the NES hauls. Now, back in October, I met Veronica through Nate, and she hooked me up with about 19 NES games and accessories. I had controllers, had zappers, I had a control stick, and they were all really great games. And then I got another haul in November that I set up through Craigslist, and there were 29 games in that one with more controllers. It came actually with the toaster system, but it's kind of like, on the fritz. It doesn't really work that well, but I've already got the top loader. I don't care. It came with another zapper, and for that set, I think there were 4 games I already had copies of, and there was like 2 games in there that he had doubles of. So 5 games I got of 29 that I already had, and then we're gonna have doubles of, and that was not bad at all. But just think about that. 19 and 25, and then I picked up a few more along the way, but that has really kickstarted my NES collection. So I actually I've got over 50 now. That's great, man. There's still some that I want to get. I don't have any of the Mega Mans, so I got to get those, and get the first Castlevania, stuff like that. So oh yeah, the NES haul is really great. Great deals on both fronts. Number 2, Shenmue 1 and 2. Now, I loved Shenmue on the Dreamcast. It just felt like it was so massive back then. It was just, and granted, the overall story is, or not the story, the gameplay, it's kind of boring. You're just kind of walking around. Kind of like it kind of reminds you of one of those old adventure games where you just, like King's Quest, where you're just kind of walking around talking to people. But then there's segments of action, and it's real time, or not real time, but relevant to, where you have to meet people at real time. He gets up every day at like 8:30, and you're supposed to meet someone at 3. You have to wait till 3 to meet them. You can't just advance time. You have to wait. And I remember just thinking that was so awesome. And of course, that's led to other big open world games, sandbox games like, the Grand Theft Autos out there and everything like that. And then Shenmue 2 was released for the original Xbox, and I never played that. I was never able to play that. A friend of mine had it, and then he didn't like it and sold it before I had a chance to play it. So, I actually went out of my way to get Shenmue 1. I was trying to track it down, and when I finally did, it was a Japanese version. Come on, man. So I actually bought that online. I paid pretty much asking price for it. And then Shenmue 2, I found that when I went up in October to see Nate, and we hung out and recorded a few episodes of the podcast, and we did some game hunting, and I actually found it up there. So yeah, I was really happy to get the Shenmue series. Unfortunately, it's part 1 and 2 of a trilogy, and it doesn't seem like we're ever going to get the final part. But anyway, my number 1 retro pickup of the year is my number 2 favorite game of all time. Now, so I played this game before I bought it, but I had it for a different system. You know what I mean? I had it for DS. It was re-released, and then I saw this in a store and was finally able to go pick it up, complete in box, and that's Chrono Trigger. The cart is immaculate. The box is a little beat up, but it's got the manual, it's got the posters, it's got even the little user's manual for like the system and everything in there, still with it and everything. So, was it a couple months ago? The only thing it didn't have was one of those little white cardboard inserts where you actually put the game in, and I was actually able to get one of those a couple months ago. I found a bunch of Super NES boxes. So, so now I've got that entirely complete in box, just the way that it's supposed to be. And there's so many other ones that that's something that I really don't care about with cartridge games is, or should I say never did, was, having them complete in box and having everything that you need with them. And I'm trying to fight that urge to get all of those games now complete in box. So, if I do try to hunt down any more, it's going to be only some of my, the top favorites. Link to the Past, FF3, Super Mario RPG. And I've actually got, as I said, I found some boxes. I actually owned Super Mario Kart already, and I own the little Player's Choice gold ribbon version of Mario Kart, and that's the box that I found. So that was just so awesome. But yeah, guys, that's my top 10 retro gaming pickups of the year. Hopefully this episode's not too off kilter. I try to be as fluid as possible, but unfortunately, trying not to cough at the same time, and I'm trying to keep my thoughts going. And doing a solo show is just a little bit different than doing a show with somebody else where you're actually having conversation and going back and forth with somebody. So I want to thank you guys for listening. This has been BrandoCast random ass number. I'm not sure what number it is. Please go check out all our other episodes. Go check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where I shoot pickup videos there for games that I'm picking up. So if you guys are ever interested in what I pick up for the month, and I'll be doing some other videos, especially the top 2014 games or games of 2014. I'll be doing a video for that here in a couple days. So hey guys, thanks for listening, and I'll check you guys later.